Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this important webinar today. We're going to talk about website accessibility. The reason that we've done this is because we heard from a member who is in the midst of trying to make their website accessible because they were the subject of a lawsuit. And so that's something that we were a lot unaware of, but now we are aware of it, and we wanted to make our members aware of it. And we actually have an expert to walk us through today. It's our board member, Adam Lowe from Peak Performance Digital. So with that, Adam, I'm going to turn the program over to you because you've got a lot of good information for us. And a couple of members on here have volunteered their websites to kind of get an analysis. So we thank you for that. But Adam, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks so much. I'm going to share screen. Make sure everyone can see that and make sure that I can see all of you. Let me get my windows where they need to be. All right, there we go. So Jane, Courtney, if something goes awry, just chime in and interrupt me. If you can't hear anything or if a slide starts acting wonky, just let me know. All right. So first of all, thank you, Jane, for giving me the opportunity to present today. And I definitely want to thank all the attendees who are here. Before we begin, I want to let you know that we're going to be able to download this presentation and the video when they're available at the link below, peakperformancedigital.com, GSSCC-website-accessibility-webinar. I'm going to put that link on every slide, so just take note of it when you have a chance. Today, I have 3 goals that I want to accomplish. First, I want to inform you of the website-related regulatory threats that business owners face. Then I want to show you how you can protect yourself, either on your own or with our help. And the main goal of all this is to reduce your risk, to make you and your company less of a target for fines, penalties, and lawsuits. Those are things that other business owners are going to have to deal with and pay for with both time and money. A little bit about what we do at Peak Performance Digital. We plan, design, build, and manage websites for all types of businesses. Over the last few years, that's meant deep diving into areas like security, privacy, and accessibility to protect your business from security and legal threats. And of course, what good is a website if your business isn't getting found online? So we do a lot of work with search engine optimization and pay-per-click advertising. We're also active members of the International Association for Accessibility Professionals, and we continually take accessibility training to stay on top of these changes. There are a few hot topics related to website compliance that we've been addressing over the last few years. First is the topic of consumer privacy. This isn't going to be a real focus today, but I want to mention it. New and recent laws from the EU and California, they carry steep fines and possible criminal penalties. You've probably heard of the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. This protects EU citizens, residents, and visitors, no matter where they are and no matter where your business is located. So it's something we all need to know about. Then there's the CCPA, that's the California Consumer Privacy Act. This is actually a bit more restricted than the GDPR, but it only applies when certain criteria are met. Both of these go well beyond website topics, and they govern a whole range of requirements related to data control and retention. Then we have website accessibility. This has become huge over the last few years. As recently as even a few months ago, we got some official guidance from the DOJ on this subject. And recent court decisions have emboldened professional plaintiffs to shake down non-compliant website owners for tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. This has become a real problem, as Jane mentioned. It's hard to talk about accessibility without mentioning the ADA and the Unruh Civil Rights Act. More and more companies are including accessibility as part of their corporate social responsibility initiatives, though. And as a bonus, what's good for accessibility is actually also good for search engine optimization. In fact, Google has alluded that accessibility criteria will become a ranking factor soon. Let's take a look at some disability statistics. So worldwide, there are about 1 billion people with disabilities. That's 15% of the total population. We'll break those numbers down for the US alone. So in the US, we have 6.4 million people with some sort of visual disability, 20.9 with an ambulatory disability, 10.5 with an auditory disability, and 14.8 million people with a neurological or cognitive disability. You just can't ignore these kind of numbers. To help provide accommodations for disabled population, Congress passed the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. I'm sure you're at least a little bit familiar with the ADA. It prevents discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life. That includes jobs, schools, transportation, and all public and private places that are open to the general public. The purpose of this law is to make sure that people with disabilities have the same rights and opportunities as everyone else. It's the law that makes sure that physical locations have handicap spaces, wheelchair ramps, wide doorways, and more. The ADA isn't the only reason that we should make our websites accessible, though. It's actually good for business, too. Accessible websites have an opportunity to drive more sales or donations. But did you know that 71% of disabled users will leave a website if it's not accessible? Accessible websites can leave a positive impression and help your reputation. People with a disability are 3 times as likely to avoid an organization that isn't accessible, and they're twice as likely to dissuade others from doing business with that organization. This is according to the Australian Human Rights Commission. Accessibility can differentiate your company from your competition. Combining accessibility with usability results in a better experience for all of your visitors, regardless of whether they're disabled or not. It can improve the speed of your website thanks to cleaner and leaner code, helps make you more relevant in search results due to proper formatting of page headings. It improves readability for good typography and color choices. Hyperlinks and menus are clearly distinguishable, making it easier for visitors to navigate the site. You provide transcripts with audio and video for both visually impaired and sighted users, and it reduces surprises, things like links opening in new windows or tabs. And as I mentioned before, accessibility will soon become a search engine optimization ranking factor. So let's jump back to the ADA for a minute. There are a few interesting things about it that make ADA just a little bit different from other regulations, and this is what people are taking advantage of. First, there's the right to private action. This means that individuals, not just governments, can sue your business for being non-compliant. The ADA allows for statutory awards of attorney fees to the prevailing party. This can turn harmed individuals into profit-seeking plaintiffs. And ADA compliance has traditionally been objective. So compliance can be determined by a checklist or photographs, and it makes it very easy to prove non-compliance to a judge. As a result of all this, there are people that drive around from business to business with cameras, clipboards, and tape measures just looking for violations. They threaten to sue the businesses for tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars and dozens of hours of your time. Suing businesses on the base of ADA has become its own industry, and the government hasn't been willing or able to do much to curb this nonsense. Now, it's not just physical businesses that these testers are targeting. They're also looking at websites, and they have the law on their side. Plaintiffs only need to show an objective failure to the judge to win. So most businesses that are targeted, they're settling for tens of thousands of dollars or more. But even then, their website still isn't compliant. So they're only setting themselves up for future lawsuits. It's no secret that the web has always been a mess in terms of accessibility, but its relation to the ADA took center stage back in 2016. A blind man brought a lawsuit against Domino's Pizza when he wasn't able to place an order on their website. Federal court ordered Domino's to update its website to be accessible to people with disabilities, and Domino's went ahead and they asked that case to be heard by the Supreme Court. And then in 2019, 3 years later, the Supreme Court decided not to hear this case. That opened the doors to countless more lawsuits. Since then, thousands of other companies have been targeted. They include CVS, Burger King, Target, Nike, and plenty of others. It's not just big businesses that are getting sued, though. Small businesses are being targeted at an even faster rate. Testers are going industry by industry and area by area. They're testing thousands of websites with automated tools, and then they're sending out blanket demand letters. The fact is, small and medium-sized businesses are very easy targets. One reason is that they use inexpensive but inaccessible website builders, things like Wix, Squarespace, Webflow, and Weebly. Small businesses often don't have the resources or knowledge to make their websites accessible, and they don't have the time or money to fight a lawsuit, and they'd rather just settle and move on. There have also been some really interesting developments from the DOJ regarding website accessibility. So in 2018, the DOJ reaffirmed its position in a letter to Congress. They said that the ADA does apply to websites. In 2019, when the Supreme Court declined to hear the Domino's argument, that happened, and then everything went quiet for a few years. Now, just this year, in March of 2022, the DOJ released some official guidance for ADA compliance for websites. Among other things, on the web guidance page, they specifically said that for these reasons, the department has consistently taken the position that ADA's requirements apply to all goods, services, privileges, or activities offered by public accommodations, including those offered on the web. So the DOJ now acknowledges that the ADA applies to websites, and that's going to get really interesting here. So this is a graph that shows the number of federal ADA website accessibility lawsuits that were filed in federal courts. As you can see, there was a huge jump between 2017 and 2018. This was likely due to the publicity from the Domino's lawsuit. And then since then, these numbers have been steadily rising. I don't have figures for 2022 yet, of course, but I do suspect that that official DOJ position is likely to cause another big spike here. I mentioned on another slide that I was only counting federal ADA lawsuits. So in addition to federal suits, plaintiffs can also file on the state level. Leading the pack for state lawsuits are New York, California, and Florida. California is especially attractive for lawsuits because of something called the Unrest Civil Rights Act. In addition to the attorney fees and injunctive relief, UCA also provides for a cease and desist order that can shut down the offending website. You get recovery for out-of-pocket expenses, general and special damages, emotional distress damages, and get this, 3 times actual damages for each event with a statutory minimum of $4,000. That's pretty crazy, right? So what can you do to protect your business? And the answer is simple. Just make your website accessible so everyone can use it. Right, so maybe it's not quite that simple. What you really need to do, you have to provide for all the different ways that people with different abilities can use the computer and the web. This includes all combinations of operating systems, browsers, devices, and assistive technologies. And to make this even more fun, all businesses, nonprofits, and entities must be accessible. Your revenue, size, location, product services, those are all irrelevant. If you provide product services or information to the public, you are responsible for making sure that it's accessible to everyone. If a disabled person can't learn about you through your website, they're effectively barred from doing business with you, just the same as if they can't make it into your location. Thankfully, the World Wide Web Consortium, the W3C, began developing some guidelines for web accessibility, even as early back as 1999. The first modern draft of the accessibility guidelines, called the WCAG 2.0, was released in 2008. 10 years later, the current version, 2.1, was published. Now, only 4 years after that, another version, 2.2, is due out later this year. It is worth noting, though, that the WCAG, these are guidelines, not standards. Even the Department of Justice states that in their materials. They say that although they do say that following the WCAG guidelines demonstrates a reasonable attempt at accessibility. Pardon me. So the shorthand for the principles underlying the WCAG are POUR. This stands for perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. There are about 109 total requirements listed in the WCAG. Some of them are simple checklist items, things like making sure the contrast ratios meet certain thresholds. Then others are really subjective. They say things like make web pages appear to and operate in predictable ways. The WCAG outlines 3 different levels of conformance. There's level A, level AA, and level AAA. Level A meets the fundamental accessibility requirements, and it's the bare minimum that most websites need to meet. Level A is the standard for most websites, and it meets most common accessibility goals. And then finally, you have level AAA. This is the highest level of accessibility. I should note that the WCAG does not recommend that level AAA conformance be required as a general policy, not for entire websites, because it's not possible to satisfy all level AAA success criteria for some content. So when most people talk about a website being accessible or being WCAG compliant, and by the way, WCAG compliance isn't really an accurate term. They actually mean that it conforms to WCAG version 2.1 level AA. So when we hear WCAG compliant or accessible, we should be thinking WCAG version 2.1 level AA. Out of all the accessibility issues, these are the ones that are easy to programmatically detect and the ones that are most commonly noted in lawsuits and demand letters. So there's image alt text. This is what describes images for screen readers and search engines. Navigation. Users should be able to navigate the entire website using just keyboard or voice controls. And this usually requires special coding for things like menus, headings, forms, buttons, and links. Contrast ratios. Text needs a high color contrast against background so that it can be read with a screen reader or without a screen reader. Animations have to be stoppable so that they don't provoke seizures. And videos need captions or transcripts. And please note that YouTube auto-generated captions usually are not sufficient for this. And again, all these things apply to all devices, browsers, and operating systems. So the things that I've mentioned so far have been pretty technical. Creating and publishing an accessibility statement is one thing that most of you can do to protect yourself right away with very little to no cost or technical knowledge. An accessibility statement can show that you're at least aware of accessibility. It also provides visitors with information about your level of accessibility and an alternative method of accessing your content. And in a lot of cases, for those who have not put effort into website accessibility, this could mean that you're providing visitors with a phone number or other contact method to get in touch with you. The W3C has an online generator where you can answer a few questions, and it'll give you a templated accessibility statement that you can use. Just Google the W3C accessibility statement, and you'll find the link. You can also go to the link down here, the website accessibility webinar, and it'll be there as well. So if possible, get the help of your website agency and make sure that your lawyer looks over everything before you do publish this statement. We have to give the attorneys work. They need it. All right, so now we're going to get into some really fun stuff. If you've ever done a search on website accessibility, you've probably seen ads for these accessibility overlays and widgets, and they claim to fix your accessibility problems and protect you from lawsuits. Some of those prominent ones are Accessibility, UserWay, and Audio Eye, but there's dozens of others. All these companies have massive marketing budgets and they dominate the search results for anything related to website accessibility. These widgets and overlays, they might fix some problems, but they can't fix everything. And as you'll see in a few minutes, they often create more issues than they fix. These overlay companies make so many false claims, though, that I just can't get into them all in this presentation. I encourage anybody who's interested to go to overlayfalseclaims.com and overlayfactsheet.com to read more about these issues from people with actual disabilities and from accessibility industry professionals. There's even a section on one of these pages that has quotes from people with disabilities. Some of them say things like, "I finally managed to gain access to my Namecheap account by blocking accessibility in my Windows host file. It's still a pain to even try reading the article on a mobile device because of the constant interruptions every few seconds. And accessibility makes it harder to use by getting in the way of browsing and changing access barriers on a page, not by fixing them. A student and I came across an enhanced website, and to my shame, we left because navigating that mess was beyond my skill on that day." So most of these products, they feed on your fear by stating that they're going to protect your business from lawsuits and they'll shield you from litigation. The truth is, despite these marketing messages of overlay vendors, their claims of legal protection have been proven false. In 2021 alone, over 200 companies have been sued despite already having purchased an overlay. Of those lawsuits, the accessibility product was present on 95 of them the day that the lawsuit was filed against the defendant. And to make matters worse, adding an overlay to your site might actually run counter to end user preferences for privacy, and it can create risk of noncompliance for things like GDPR and CCPA. So in some cases, you might be worse off with these things than you are without them. These overlay companies, they do so much false advertising and they're so harmful that the National Federation of the Blind launched a publicity attack on the overlay companies, accusing them of engaging in harmful practices and false advertising. They also banned the market leader Accessibility from its national convention. So again, more ammo against these things. All of this is made even more confusing, though, by the affiliate and white labeling programs that they offer companies and their partners. They get bloggers and agencies and developers to publish content related to their products in exchange for affiliate revenues. And they white label their product so accessibility agencies can sell it as their own in-house solution. So because of these programs, hundreds of new accessibility specialists have appeared almost overnight, writing articles and reselling this garbage. Yeah, I find all these tactics dishonest and harmful to my clients. So I made a commitment early on not to take affiliate revenues or to white label products just so I can avoid this sort of conflict of interest. As a matter of fact, I had a period where Accessibility was aggressively trying to get me to join their partner program. Their salespeople literally called me and emailed me every single day for weeks until I finally got someone to remove me from their database. It was disgusting. So you might be wondering just how accessible your website is right now. The good news is there's some really great and free testing tools that are fairly easy to use. You'll see both of these in the demo in just a little bit. The first one and the easiest to use is called Wave, and that's by a company called WebAIM. It runs some automated checks and gives you a great summary. I especially like the structure feature that lets me quickly see an outline of the page the same way that a screen reader would see it. Another automated tool that I recommend is Axe DevTools. This one's a lot more complicated, but also much more thorough. The great thing about this is that it offers automated checks and some wizards for guided checks. It also lets you specify the WCAG version and the level of checks that you want to test against, and it lets you save your results. Axe DevTools is free for most common features, and the pro version starts at $45 a month. Next thing we have is the W3C Easy Checks checklist. This is a great tool to show you how to evaluate different components and what to look for. And now it's called the Easy Checks evaluation, but their definition of easy is probably a little bit different than ours. It is a good checklist to review, though, if you're interested in understanding a little bit more about accessibility. If you don't want to mess with any of this, you can always just contact us. Give your contact information on your website. We'll run some quick checks and get back to you with a high-level report of our findings. This is a manual check, so give us about a day or two to get back to you. And if you want a truly thorough audit, we have both practical and comprehensive audit options. A full comprehensive audit can cost somewhere in the range of $5,000 to $7,000 for a simple 5-page website, and that doesn't even include remediation. This just is not realistic for most businesses, and it's only recommended for government agencies, contractors, large businesses, or businesses that specifically focus on accessibility. We don't do those ourselves, but we do partner with specialists that can help if you do need that level of comprehensive audit. What we offer is what we call a practical audit. And this is where we take a look at the most important pages, things that are templated, such as product service pages, articles, and those pages that are likely to have issues, things like checkout forms or contact pages. And those audits begin around 1950. So there are lots and lots of options, things that you can do yourself, things that you can pay lots of money for, or things that you can pay a little bit of a lot of money for. So what do you do with this audit? How do you go about fixing a website accessibility for real? So the first thing you do, you want to identify those issues that are already present. And this involves doing some sort of audit of the site and understanding your goals. From this audit, you come up with a list of areas that need to be addressed, and we rate them in terms of severity and effort to remediate. Then we prioritize the items that we're going to address. We come up with a plan and a proposal to perform the remediation. We do the product to remediate the website and perform another audit to validate those changes. And then lastly, we recommend our website management program so that we can continually keep an eye on the website and address new accessibility issues as guidelines and technology changes. Some issues like adding alt text or restructuring some headings can be fixed by changing the content, but many issues are structural and they do require us to recode the website. And this process is pretty standard across the board for not just my agency, but for most agencies that work with accessibility in a real comprehensive way. We see a lot of people, they're asking whether websites built on popular website building platforms can be made accessible. So often these website builders, things like Wix, Squarespace, Weebly, GoDaddy, Webflow, and others, they limit your ability to make the website fully compliant. It's not that these are terrible platforms, it's just they're built to be multi-purpose and consumer friendly. So it's impossible for them to take every scenario into consideration. Even if all the technology inside the builders is accessibility friendly, the content and design of those sites still needs to meet accessibility criteria. And without a deep understanding of what those criteria are, chances are very good that the sites can't be easily remediated. In most cases, the best option for businesses using these tools is to rebuild them using tools that are flexible enough to meet all those requirements. We generally recommend that our clients build or rebuild the websites using the open source WordPress.org platform. Don't get that confused with WordPress.com though. WordPress.org, it's the software that you can freely download, use, and host on your own servers or services like WP Engine, Flywheel, and others. WordPress.com is the commercial service that hosts WordPress for you, but it also severely restricts what you can and can't do on their platform. We never recommend WordPress.com to any of our clients. WordPress's flexibility is both its strength and its weakness. There are literally hundreds of thousands of themes and website builders available both for free and commercially. Some of these were built with accessibility in mind, but the vast majority of them, even some of the most popular commercial themes and plugins, have some sort of foundational accessibility issue that would prevent your website from becoming WCAG version 2.1 AA compliant. Even the accessibility conscious tools are simply just tools though. They require you to take an active part into ensuring that pages and the sites that you build follow accessibility guidelines. And as with anything web related, we're constantly monitoring and evaluating the tools and methodology that we use to make sure that our clients are getting the best services possible. One of the last topics that I want to bring up here before our demo is accessibility certification. There's no recognized certifications for website ADA compliance other than what some disreputable companies make up inside their marketing departments. I'm going to say that again. There's no recognized certifications for website ADA compliance. No knowledgeable or reputable company will issue an ADA website compliance certification because there's no exact parameters on what makes a website legally accessible. They're also not a governing body or an agent of the government, so they can't do it. Remember, the WCAG are just a set of guidelines, not standards. There are no standards out there. Even when we complete a project, we can't guarantee anything. The best that we can honestly say is that the website will substantially conform to WCAG version 2.1 level AA. Now, the W3C does offer a model for something called a conformance statement if you meet 6 fairly strict criteria. This is something that an expert auditor can provide only after performing a comprehensive audit of your website or web pages. Yeah, I really appreciate everybody's time. I know this was a lot of information. I know this was pretty technical and dry stuff. My contact information is all up here on the slide. I'm happy to talk to anybody if you have specific questions, or if you want us to do a quick overview, look at your website, or if you need some accessibility help. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back over to Jane.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Adam. That was a whole lot of information. And as you
Drink
said,
from the fire hose, right?
Yeah, drinking through the fire hose is exactly right. I wanted to give anybody a chance, if anybody has any specific questions, to take a minute to ask you. If folks need to leave, that's fine. Thank you for Thank you for the presentation. Thank you to those who joined us. Julie is recording this. So what we'll do now is we can keep the recording going, but if you need to leave, we understand. But if anybody has a question that you want to put in here, please either raise your hand or just, there aren't that many folks here, just ask your question. Mel, is that a question? No, okay, he's just moving his hand. Okay. Oh, iPhone 10, can you identify who you are and then what company you're with and ask your question, please?
The person that raised their hand.
Yeah, person,
Habib,
iPhone 10 raised your hand.
Habib Ghanim, USA Halal Chamber of Commerce.
Hi.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to find out if you can recommend any company. If you already have an existing website, send anybody that can be recommended to help upgrade it or add this ADA compliance.
Absolutely. That's something that my company does. So it's become probably the biggest thing that we've been doing over the last year or two. So peakperformancedigital.com.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Mel?
Jane, yeah, this time I just really wanted to say something. That was amazing. Thank you so much for leading us through that. I did learn a lot that I had not even expected to learn. So terrific. Thanks.
Thank you, Mel. I think it's always eye-opening when people experience computers and the web in ways that they're not used to.
It is. It is. Okay, any other questions? Any other comments? Okay, well, thank you again so much, Adam, for walking us through this. As I said, we did this because we are trying to make sure that our members know what they need to know and don't get caught up in this wave of lawsuits that's been going on. Thank you to our two companies who agreed to be guinea pigs. We hope that that wasn't too harsh, but was really truly a learning experience because it is important to know. And as I said, we have already had one member who's been caught up in this, and it's not fun. And as she has told me, these folks are not really, they don't really care about getting your website into compliance. It's about money. And the attorneys that she's spoken to have told her that she should just settle because the cost of her hiring them as attorneys to fight this and the ability to fight it at a higher level and actually win is slim to none. So as I said, we did this so that we don't get a whole lot of other members caught up in this challenge.
But that
So
does nothing to stop the next attorney from coming through and suing her all over again unless he actually fixes the problem.
Exactly. And she has, she, like some folks, thought her website was, just fine because she bought it from a professional website company. One of the ones that Adam had on there. I don't remember whether it was Wix, which one it was, but it was built on one of those platforms. So anyway, well, thank you again. And as I said, Julie's recording this, so we will have the recording available. Adam has put the information for the slideshow and for contact information. Everybody should have had that in the chat. We'll share this, and best wishes for everybody for a great day and a great weekend. So thank you again.
Thanks, everybody.